I just sat down and started doing a bit of scrolling when I came across that stupendously moronic Daily Mail video with the impressively ignorant Peter Hitchens giving his reasons for why the West shouldn't intervene in Iran. Now, usually I would consider such embarrassing ignorance beneath contempt and not worth responding to. However, this is a sentiment that has gained a lot of traction recently on both sides of the political aisle in figures such as the laughable Cenk Buffalo Uger and Anna Plastic Face Kasparian on the far left to morons like Dave the Unfunny Comedian Smith on the right and now Peter Hitchens. So I felt I had to record something. And I'll address this to Peter Hitchens directly, but my arguments apply equally to the other simpletons who stink up the airwaves with their sheer fatuousness. Mr. Hitchens, sir, I don't come to your office and tell you how to write whiny, ill-lettered articles about the evils of moving the clock forward or back once a year, so I'd appreciate it if you kept your stupid mouth shut about the country of my birth, Iran, especially when you're that ignorant on the topic. You see, just because you have a voice, it doesn't mean that you must use it. In your astonishingly imbecilic video, you offer two reasons for why the West shouldn't intervene in Iran. Number one, the supposed coup against Mossadegh in 1953, and number two, the outcomes from Libya, Syria, and Iraq. Now, let me demolish both arguments here, and you can thank me afterwards for the education I'm about to give you. Let's start with the claim that the US and Britain overthrew a democratic government in 1953 and then propped up the Shah, and in doing so planted the seeds for the 1979 Islamic Revolution. This might be a compelling, convenient narrative for the anti-interventionists like yourself, but it's a monumentally distorted history. Yes, it is true that in 1953, President Eisenhower approved Operation Ajax. And yes, the Shah did dismiss Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh. But calling this a coup erases crucial context. As Eli Lake explained in his recent article for the Free Press called The Wrong Lessons from Iran's Past, by that point, Mossadegh was already stretching, if not breaking, Iran's constitution. He had dismissed the country's Supreme Court, purged senior military officers, and passed laws that effectively banned all criticism of his regime. So far from defending democratic norms, he was steadily dismantling them. As he consolidated power, Mossadegh began losing support across his own coalition. Political allies, religious leaders, and even ordinary Iranians increasingly viewed his rule as authoritarian and destabilizing. Just days before his fall, he took the extraordinary step of dissolving Iran's elected parliament altogether, the Majlis. So what followed was not a clean foreign overthrow, but a chaotic internal confrontation. The Shah issued a constitutional order for Mossadegh to step down. Mossadegh refused and even had the Shah's messenger arrested. That was the first attempt to remove him before any Western intervention, and it failed spectacularly. Then American intelligence started playing a role. Propaganda was circulated against Mossadegh. However, it's important to know that the propaganda was published by newspapers who were already hostile to him. His resignation ultimately came after mass street protests organized by domestic political actors, ironically led by one Ayatollah Sayyid Abul Qasim Kashani. So what happened in 1953 was far less a foreign imposed coup and much more a political duel. Mossadegh had dissolved Iran's parliament and amassed extraordinary powers in himself. The Shah reluctantly and under enormous pressure exercised a constitutional duty to remove him. That's point number one. Point number two is even more stupid, and that's by going by your exceptionally low standards to begin with. And that's the playbook used by all you anti-interventionists who cherry pick a couple of examples of where intervention from Western countries have supposedly gone wrong without offering any context whatsoever. So allow me to give some context and offer up two arguments against this. Firstly, Iran isn't Syria, Iraq, or Libya. There aren't internal warring sectarian factions bursting at the seams to start massacring each other and are only kept in check by the theocratic fascists. Iran's population may consist of many different demographies. However, the vast, overwhelming majority consider themselves Iranians first, and they have a living memory of a time before Islamic fascism, even if, like myself, they were born after the 1979 revolution. In that sense, Iran and the situation there is much more like Kosovo or Sierra Leone or Rwanda or Liberia, a people oppressed beyond imagination by evil forces and a people whose only hope is Western intervention. Secondly, the West isn't a constant. Just because Eisenhower or either of the Bush presidents supposedly failed in the examples that you provide, it gives absolutely no reason to think that a different administration will do the same. That's the logic of a child, which may explain why you'd embrace it, considering that you have the intellectual capacity of a 10-year-old and the moral character of a cockroach. There are now credible reports that 20,000 Iranians have been killed in the last 10 days alone. This is a people who have no chance but all the will in the world to stand up to theocratic fascism in the form of Islam. Their slaughter will not end unless help arrives. So for you and your likes to come out and argue against such help when you have no skin in the game, when you have nothing to lose if you're wrong, it is the most despicable act of cowardice and reprehensible moral character I have ever witnessed. If the West chooses silence over action now, it will not be because it didn't know better, but because it lacked courage to act while a nation was being butchered in plain sight. And cowards like you will be responsible for it.